you. You know, I woke up this morning and I was reviewing my notes, and how naive am I that I thought that this hearing could actually be bipartisan when we're talking about threats that the Chinese Communist Party presents to the United States of America. Wow. Well, I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. We live in this country, and this country is threatened by the Chinese Communist Party. So no doubt there are a great many threats. There's a multitude facing our country. It's our job in Congress to determine the greatest threats to our United States national security and our future prosperity, and then to address them. We have to prioritize them. What are the most dire threats? And then let's work to either eliminate them or mitigate them to a significant degree. In my humble opinion, it's rather obvious what the greatest threats are. One, it's our deficit spending and our accumulated debt, and two, it's the Chinese Communist Party. But this is not a hearing, Mr. Chairman, on the deficit or the debt. It is not a hearing on Russia. It's a hearing on the Chinese Communist Party. I'm not here to talk about Joe Biden today. I'm here to talk about the Chinese Communist Party. And it's sad when you hear these buzzwords from the ranking member and other Democrats. They say Russia, Ukraine, Nazis, MAGA, collusion, Russian hoax. When the Mueller investigation found that there was no collusion, it truly was a Russian hoax. Reality proves quite the opposite. Professor Snyder, what new territory of another nation state did Vladimir Putin violate in 2008?
Georgia.
And who was president in 2008?
President of the Russian Federation
was
Vladimir Putin.
Of the United States of America.
Obama.
In 2014, what new territory of another nation state did Vladimir Putin violate?
Ukraine.
Ukraine. Crimea and eastern Ukraine, correct?
That is correct.
And who was the president then?
Obama.
Okay. In 2022, what new territory of another nation state did Vladimir Putin violate?
Ukraine.
Full-scale invasion trying to grab Kyiv, correct?
Correct.
And who was president then?
Biden.
Joe Biden. From January of 2017 to January of 2021, what new territory of another nation state did Vladimir Putin violate?
There were no military invasions.
There were no new territories violated by Vladimir Putin. You are correct.
Yes, although
and who was president then?
Of the Russian Federation.
The United States of America, from January 2017 to January 2021.
You're repeating the question. It was Joe Biden.
No, from 2017 to 2021, who was the president of the United States?
Oh, sorry, Donald Trump.
Donald J. Trump.
That's right.
So, reality shows us that there was only one U.S. president in the last 3 or 4 rather, that could either control or contain Vladimir Putin, and that was Donald J. Trump. So that could be possibly an inconvenient truth to our friends across the aisle, but nonetheless, it is the truth. General Spalding, who has a greater GDP, China or Russia?
China.
China. In fact, it's about almost 10 times as much. And Colonel Newsham, who has a greater population, China or Russia?
China.
China, by about 10 times. So who's the greater threat? It's rather obvious it's China, whereas President Trump would say China. General Spalding, has the United States intelligence community accurately identified the threat that the CCP presents?
No, and I believe that's a direct result of the influence within Washington, D.C., particularly on think tanks.
In what ways has the intelligence community failed to address the CCP threat?
When I started working with the Defense Intelligence Agency, they were primarily focused on the military threat coming from China. They weren't focused on the economic threat, the financial threat, the academic threat, the political threat that we're talking about here.
So, for instance, in just a few years ago, before Joe Biden took office, there were about less than 500 Chinese nationals that were apprehended on the southern border. And then the last year we have data for, last fiscal year, it was nearing 50,000. You find that alarming?
Terrifying.
Do you think every one of those folks is just looking for a better life, or are there some sleeper agents looking to do us harm if we ever got into a hot war with China?
I think both of those situations exist, but I also think that the Chinese Communist Party is opportunistic, And it has conditioned the Chinese citizens to believe that they must do what the Chinese Communist Party asks. So every Chinese citizen that comes into the country, by law, is a Chinese agent of the Chinese Communist Party.
And even if 99% of them are just looking for a better life, it's terrifying to know that there are 500 new potential threats in this country in an open society.
Well, Li Yuan, who's a journalist for the New York Times, talks about the deprogramming she herself had to go through when she came to the United States and started recognizing the signs of having been programmed. And I think if you're going to have those types of people come into the country, then they have to go through some similar deprogramming process, because if you live in China, like I have, you see that the entire population has been programmed through propaganda over the last decade, certainly since Tiananmen Square.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.